I first came across credit unions in the late 1980s when I was a priest in the Sheffield diocese, and I was just surprised they weren't more widely used. It seemed to be a good way of helping people to develop a discipline of modest saving month by month, and then for them to be able to borrow money when some crisis happened. Perhaps the fridge broke, or there was a need for a new oven, the sort of things that you can't necessarily pay for at one go. It avoided people getting into serious debt, and in particular falling into the hands of the more predatory lenders who would charge extremely extortionate rates of interest. I mean, debt just seems to increase and increase, and some of that credit unions won't be able to do anything about. If you're now paying out more than you're getting in week by week, month by month, because your benefit payments have gone down or your wages haven't risen in line with your food bills. I mean, remember that now over half of those in poverty in this country are actually in work. Credit unions can't build up the difference between income and expenditure, but what they can do is they can smooth the gaps without somebody getting into such high debt because of interest payments that the whole thing becomes insupportable. Well, credit unions are for everybody. In fact, the Church of England is working together with some other churches to set up a credit union for its own people. So there will be a credit union for clergy like myself, and I've already, from my previous diocese, provided some money to help set that up. Credit unions are a normal way of saving and borrowing for ordinary people. Again, many professional organisations would have credit unions for the employees, perhaps, of a particular company, including some quite well-paid professions. It's a much cheaper way of borrowing and paying back than many of the alternatives that are available. The surprising thing is why there has been so little of them in this country for so long. Other parts of the world, even just across the water in Ireland, the credit unions have been much more present and a much more mainstream way of saving and borrowing. And given all that we've heard in recent times, even about the more reputable banks, maybe this is a way that people can keep their money in the hands of a local organisation that will be benefiting people in their locality. I'm delighted that the Archbishop of Canterbury has set a very strong lead around credit unions. He personally has written several times now to all the bishops to remind us that he's expecting us to engage with credit unions, and I'm delighted to be able to, as we say in Manchester, pick up the baton on that particular one and run with it. He's discovered from his own background and his work in Parliament on the banking inquiry just the importance there is of finding other ways for people to be able to borrow money, small sums for short periods of time, that are not going to risk them getting into very heavy interest payments. One of the things that's pleased me in arriving at Manchester is that my predecessor chaired and has now passed on to me the Greater Manchester Poverty Commission, and that brings together a range of people from different walks of life here in the Greater Manchester area. It produced its report a few months ago, and that report clearly sets out issues around finance and lending as one of the priority areas. So in following that up and in working as the church with the credit unions in the Manchester area in partnership, we're following through one of the recommendations that came out of the Poverty Commission earlier this year. Well, Manchester has a long history of this sort of enterprise, right the way back to the foundation of the cooperative movement in this area. And so although they've not been particularly high profile in the past, I'm hoping that just as Manchester has set the tone 100 years and more ago with the cooperative movement, so it can do the same with the credit union movement today. Historically, some of the credit unions have actually begun in churches, particularly the Roman Catholic Church has a very good track record in forming credit unions and sustaining them. And so, because a credit union works around a common bond that the members share, membership of a church or membership of a parish living in a particular locality is a good example of that bond. And the bond is what, I guess, makes the thing work, because it means there's a greater sense that yes, this is money I borrowed and I actually care about the people I borrowed it from, and that will help me to sustain the discipline of paying the money back within the timescale that we've agreed. I'm delighted that we are now encouraging the staff in Church House in the Diocese of Manchester to personally consider signing up and joining a credit union. We think that for them will be, again, as it is for many other professions, a good way to save during the good times and borrow at those, well, maybe times like Christmas or holiday periods, or again when there's something in the household breaks down and needs replacing or repairing. It's just a simple way of tiding over, smoothing the peaks and troughs in our personal finances, and I would want to recommend it to all the staff at Church House. I mean, one thing that does concern me is the rising level of debt in this country. At £1.4 trillion, it now comfortably outstrips the gross domestic product of the nation. Those high levels of personal indebtedness I don't think they're good for any of us. And as I say, credit unions can't turn that round single-handedly, but a fair amount of debt is caused by the fact that people are paying interest on the money that they borrowed. And if credit unions can become both a means of reducing interest payments for people and also helping people discipline their saving and spending in better ways so that they don't have to borrow quite so often or quite so much. People spiral deeper and deeper into debt, and once there comes a point that you know it's unpayable, even the incentive to pay it can go away. But people do get their whole lives wrecked. They lose their homes, sometimes they lose their families, their marriages, their jobs, as a result of getting themselves deeper and deeper into debt. Whatever we can do, even small things, even symbolic gestures, small prophetic acts, as the Church has always been good at over centuries, that simply say, actually we're not content to simply let things go on the way they are.